Classic fairy tales. It's story time. Sleeping Beauty. A story about a princess. So once upon a time, a king and a queen had a beautiful baby girl. The proud parents decided to hold a christening feast to celebrate. So they invited kings, queens, princes, and princesses from other kingdoms. 5 good fairies lived in the kingdom, and the king wanted them to be godmothers to his daughter. One of these fairies was very old, and no one had seen her in years or even knew where she was. So when the king sent out the invitations, he invited only the 4 young fairies. The day of the christening arrived, and the palace was full of laughter and dancing. After the delicious feast, the 4 fairies gave the princess their magical gifts. The first fairy waved her wand over the crib and said, "You shall be kind and considerate." The second fairy said, "You shall be beautiful and loving." The third fairy said, "You shall be clever and thoughtful." Suddenly, the palace doors flew open. It was the old fairy. She was furious, and because she had not been invited to the feast, she flew up to the crib and waved her wand over the princess. "One day the king's daughter shall prick her finger on a spindle and fall down dead." She screeched and then rushed out. "I cannot undo the spell," said the fourth fairy, "but I can soften it. The princess will prick her finger on a spindle, but she will not die. Instead, the princess and everyone within the palace and its grounds will fall into a deep sleep for 100 years. "What? The king thanked the fairy, and then to protect his daughter ordered every spindle in the kingdom to be burned. The years passed, and the princess grew into a beautiful and clever and kind young woman. One day, the princess decided to explore some rooms in the palace she had never been in before. After a while, she came to a little door at the top of a tall tower. Inside, there was an old woman working at her spinning wheel. The princess didn't know that the woman was really the old fairy in disguise. "What are you doing?" the princess asked curiously. "I am spinning thread, dear," replied the woman. "Well, can I try, please?" asked the princess. No sooner had she touched the spindle than she pricked her finger and fell into a deep sleep. As she fell asleep, every living thing within the castle walls fell into deep sleep too. What? As time passed, a hedge of thorns sprang up around the palace. It grew higher and thicker every year, until only the tallest towers could be seen above it. The story about the beautiful princess who lay sleeping within its walls spread throughout the land. She became known as Sleeping Beauty. Many princes tried to break through the thorns to rescue Sleeping Beauty, but none were successful. Exactly 100 years after the princess had fallen asleep, A handsome prince, having heard the story of Sleeping Beauty, decided to try and awaken the sleeping princess. The prince did not know that fairy spell was coming to its end. As he pushed against the thick hedge, every thorn turned into a beautiful rose, and a path magically formed to let him pass. Soon the prince came to a palace. He saw people and animals asleep in every room. At last, he found the tiny room in the tower where Sleeping Beauty lay. He kissed her gently. The sleeping princess opened her eyes and smiled. With that one look, they fell in love. All around the palace, people started waking up. The spell had been broken. The king called for a huge wedding feast to be prepared. And this time, he invited every person and fairy in the entire kingdom. Sleeping Beauty married her handsome prince, and they lived all happily ever after. The end.